Wow. Right off the bat, I do just want to say, yes, I was completely wrong that Sutekh would not be returning. So for all those people who said that Sutekh would be returning and that's who the twist villain is, well done. I applaud you. Though quite a lot of people came to it from a different conclusion or a different method to get to the conclusion, which was when they show all the different Susan characters, especially the one, her with the Darth Maul horns. It looks like there's pyramids in the background, so people went, boom, pyramids of Mars. There's pyramids on Mars, so it has to be pyramids of Mars at Sutekh. There's the connection. Turns out, no, it's not the connection. It's just Sutekh technology. Yeah, not as cool as it being pyramids on Mars properly, but it's a little bit more nestled in there. A fake-out abbreviation. So let's talk about it being Sutekh that's returning, and honestly, I'm not a huge fan of this, and I made my thoughts clear in the previous videos about why I don't particularly want Sutekh, but looking at it now, yeah, I'm not really big on it being Sutekh. Sutekh is a character that, we haven't seen him since the 70s, and where we have seen him is in expanded media, where I believe he's done fairly well, not done a disservice. Sutekh is this character that has always had an imposing presence. He's a guy that sits in a chair, has a cool voice, and just exerts his will and power over the Doctor without even really doing much. And that is, I suppose, a good representation of true power. But the fact that he only appeared once and was then defeated is kind of where the magic lies. It's like if you only did a Weeping Angel story. If you made Blink the only Weeping Angel story, then the Weeping Angels would probably be a lot better remembered, especially with what Moffat continued to do with them and kind of debilitated them. That was the worry here, is that Sutekh will be coming back and he won't be done justice. He'll be done a disservice with how RTD writes him and interprets the character. Now, I don't think I am too worried about this now, just from actually seeing the character itself. It's great to see this giant CGI beast of what Sutekh would look like if it was done in a modern day interpretation. It's very true. Obviously with it being the 70s, they didn't have good effects, but it is a very true representation of what Sutekh originally looked like when he had the mask off. But I would have loved to see Sutekh in his original costume, because it's so iconic. It looks incredible. I've got it as the thumbnail of this video because I know that it looks incredible. It's amazing. It's iconic, and it would have been nice to see that, even though I know we get only a glimpse of him here, a small, maybe only 10 seconds of actually seeing him, but it would have been nice to have him appear as the more humanoid version. His appearance does also give us a lot of questions, and I think the big one here is, well, there's two really. The first is, who is Mrs. Flood? We still haven't really got an explanation. She understands what's going on around her and can see the events as they unfold, but she's not a Harbinger. Her name doesn't really fit that as Harriet Arbinger. And also, the second question is, who is Susan Twist, really? It's obvious that she is a servant of Sutekh, but she isn't the Harbinger. From what we've seen so far, there's only been really one Harbinger. And of all the gods we've seen, the Toymaker didn't have their own Harbinger. If you would look back at the classic series, you could say maybe that Scarman took on the role of the Sutekh Harbinger in Pyramids of Mars, and maybe for the Trickster we had the Grask, but also I guess that doesn't line up with the naming, as all the Harbingers we've seen so far, which admittedly is only two, being, was his name Henry Arbinger or something, and then of course Harriet. It's tricky to say. Maybe this is the rule, or maybe those ones could later be interpreted as exceptions. So maybe Susan is a part Harbinger, or maybe is more like Scarman's original title of the Servant of Sutekh. Not too sure, as she does share a lot of his powers, such as the Katura's Gift of Death. Of course, this is part one of two parts, so we will likely get explanations of both Mrs. Flood and Susan in the second part, but it would have been nice to know just a little bit more and have a bit of confirmation, as this whole episode was basically just setup. Most two-parters usually have at least a bit of story sprinkled into the first part of actual action, but here we just have Sutekh at the end, and while, yes, it was an amazing cliffhanger, I'd only compare it really to Utopia. If you look at Bad Wolf and Parting of the Ways, originally in the first part, you've got the Daleks appearing at the end, but throughout there's so much story and substance to it. It's like its own individual story. You could make it so, even if you remove the Daleks at the end and just had Rose die. It's the same thing with the next series, Series 2. You've got Army of Ghosts and Doomsday. Now, there's the payoff of the Daleks at the end, but at the same time you have the whole plot with the Cybermen in the first story. It has its own separate thing. Whereas here, it's essentially like Utopia, but the thing is with Utopia is that it was 3 separate parts. This isn't, it's only going to be 2 parts. So for the second episode, what I'm basically predicting is going to happen is that it's going to be about 30 to 40 minutes of us fighting against Sutekh, and then within the last 15 to 5 minutes is going to be the resolution, Sutekh's gone, all the goodbyes, set up for the next series, etc. I don't know how he's going to fit all of this into part 2 and make it fully work, properly paced. I mean, speaking of pacing, this first episode I thought was initially pretty good. It doesn't waste any time. Immediately the Doctor shows up at the unit, says, look, there's this woman that keeps following me and Ruby around time and space. This is what she looks like. And they're all like, yeah, we know, it's Susan Triad, it's the IT genius. We monitor every IT genius and bring them in if they've got alien technology. Though we haven't got that guy yet, which I assume is meant to be a reference to Elon Musk. But after that, things really slowed down, especially in the section with the time window, which felt like it went on for 10 or 15 minutes. Yeah, I wasn't really too big on that, because all was happening was they would keep asking the same questions over and over again, like, what's going on? Can anyone see her face? Etc, etc. And a lot of it you can tell the actors have no idea what they're looking at. They haven't been told properly, look, this is an imaginary thing. All the background is going to be trees, houses, etc. It's Ruby Road. They don't know what that looks like. The only person who was probably on set of all of this was Ncuti Gatwa. And yeah, you can really, really tell, especially when the Colonel's describing what's in front of him, and the scenery doesn't really match that. That really took me out of it, I have to say. Speaking of that Colonel as well, I mean, the Doctor essentially just got him killed. Kate Stewart, rightfully so, is saying, Doctor, you said we shouldn't move, why are you telling this guy to do it? But, of course, because she trusts the Doctor, she lets the Colonel go, and he ends up paying the price for it. And the price is, unfortunately, his life. Yeah, quite unfortunate, and quite a bad move, Doc. Something that also quite annoyed me was the fake out with Susan, of course, and being the Doctor's granddaughter, Susan. The connection's there, and it's a nice fake out, I suppose, to then make everyone think, okay, this is what's going to happen, and then boom, twist it round, and it's actually Sutekh. But at the same time, why are you teasing us like this? Carol Ann Ford is still alive. She is perfectly able to come in and do a bit of acting, just like William Russell did. And I know, unfortunately, in the last video I forgot to mention about William Russell's unfortunate passing. But yes, rest in peace, William Russell. It was so sad to see you go, especially considering he was such a monumental figure in Doctor Who community. And to see a character that's been around for so long, played by an actor who's been around for so long, and been a real staple of the show go is so unfortunate, and I'm so sorry that I forgot about that. But yeah, Carol Ann Ford, she's perfectly able to come back and act for the show. Why do you keep teasing this and then not following through with it? It's the same with the 60th. It would have been so nice to see her return, but we just didn't. And to have Susan not come back and mention her in an earlier episode as a kind of foreshadowing setup for this and not follow through with it, I was a little bit annoyed with it, I do have to say. But that's how it goes. We did also get some confirmation, though, on the Doctor's children, which, of course, we talk about the Doctor's grandchild a lot, and in the expanded continuity, that is, of course, explained as being the other's granddaughter, and that's what the connection is there. We never talk about the Doctor's actual children, and he says a very peculiar line about he hasn't really had them yet, or that's in his future, and that does kind of make sense. But at the same time, I mean, did he know then that he'd have infinite regenerations or a complete new life cycle? I don't know. It opens a lot of doors, but it also closes a couple at the same time. I suppose that's what you kind of get with a show that it focuses on time travel. I've been rambling for a lot of this, but I have to say I did actually find quite a bit of it funny, and it was mainly the scenes that did involve Susan Triad. When she's walking on stage, and not a lot of people I've seen have pointed this out, but she looks exactly like Theresa May doing a ridiculous robotic dance. And I mean, the actor herself, Susan Twist, does look very similar to Theresa May. Obviously it's not dead exact, but she does look very similar. And then later on she's saying that her dad worked as a bin man or something, and then her mother was a dinner lady. Postman and a dinner lady. Her dad was a postman, mother a dinner lady. Good God, it just reminded me exactly of my father was a toolmaker, and that made me burst out laughing, because Oh, did you know that Keir Starmer's dad's a toolmaker? I most certainly did not. But anyway, guys, yes, that is it. My thoughts and feelings on The Legend of Ruby Sunday. Not too much to say, as I feel like if I were to go too deep into the criticism of just it being completely set up, yeah, obviously it's going to be set up. We're going to get it all explained in the next part, and considering I will be seeing this in cinema next week, both of them back to back, I'm going to be talking a lot more in depth next week. So stay tuned for that. I'll soon be releasing a video on Sutekh, the history of Sutekh the Destroyer, just to get a bit of the hype up and talk a bit more about this character is, because this is a brand new audience that's meant to be watching this series, and you've brought back a character from the 70s that not a lot of people are going to know. Is this either genius marketing to get them to watch the classic series on iPlayer again, or is it just another pretty stupid decision like having space babies as the start of your series? We shall see. But as always, thanks for watching.